I just think it's constantly being aware that there is always a need for growth. I think sometimes we get comfortable, complacent. We're in a good space. So I notice that sometimes when I feel or sense that my marriage is under attack, I'm more intentional to be listening to a marriage devotional, to look for a marriage plan on the Bible app, to turn on that marriage sermon, or to read a book. And then when things kind of are in a smooth sailing type of phase, then I'm not as intentional sometimes as I am when things are kind of in a rockier place. So I think it's just important to constantly be maintaining our marriage and looking for ways to grow and looking for ways to keep those tune-ups going so that we're not always in a reactionary mode, but looking like, how can I pour into my spouse?
Life can be fast-paced, strenuous, and flat-out overwhelming. Life transitions and taboo topics can make it hard to catch your breath. Welcome to Breathe, a podcast that enables you to slow down, get your bearings, and engage in real conversations where no topic is off limits. Breathe is presented by Breath of Life, hosted by David Person and speaker-director Pastor Debleaire Snell.
Welcome to Breathe. I'm David Person, and as you can see, you've got my brother Pastor Snell here.
That's it.
And well, look at here.
Look at here.
I knew there was a shining light in this part of the room. There wasn't.
It's a different energy that's not always here, man.
Yeah, just everything changed.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
And for the good. No shade to Pastor Nugent.
No. But he's not as purty as
not as pretty.
Oh my gosh.
I'm enjoying the view a little bit more.
I know you are.
Yeah.
I know you are. So we got First Lady Gianna Snell. Good to see you, as always.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Yes.
Good time.
And Sister Danita Jones. Good to see
It's
you.
always great to be here with you guys. I love
Yeah.
hanging out.
Yeah.
Still haven't got my sweatshirt, but that's okay.
Oh, man.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine. We're not in the club.
Let's get into the program. Get into the program.
And on today's show. But we are looking forward to this conversation. Though. We started off, of course, with the Marriage Leap Husbands Edition.
Yeah.
And now we've got the Marriage Leap Wives Edition. So we want to hear what the ladies feel and think about this conversation about how to take a leap in marriage. Now, let's see, you've been married how long?
Oh, don't do that. So I
Hey,
laugh.
PJ,
I know, right?
this is your
This
get out
is why I
jail
laugh.
free
That's
card.
right.
Listen, just
Well,
rewind
here's
this.
what's funny. I tell people all the time that in our marriage, hashtag the boyfriend is like the date guy. Like he's first date, know when that date is.
How many
He's
years
that-
have you been married? Stop
Right,
trying to skate
I'm
around
gonna
the
say-
answer to this question, Danita.
22.
Okay, all right.
It'll be 22 this year.
All right.
She
Yes.
needed time.
Yeah.
I had to write
installing
because in
to
my
do the
head I'm
math.
like,
Hey,
doing the
husbands,
math.
it's not just us.
No, it's not.
just us.
It's not. I am terrible with that. But yeah, no, it's 22 this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now you've given Sister Snell plenty of time to
Yeah, to
calculate.
do the math in her
So
head.
how many years?
Well, see, what's easy is we got married the same year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I wish they had answered first. I would know.
Okay.
I was like, oh, me too.
Yeah.
So you were ready to go.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
get to hear it all the time too in his pastoral introductions.
Yeah, you just kinda-
And you break down days, minutes.
Minutes.
Yeah, months. Yeah.
21 years,
Yeah.
3 months, and
Yep.
4 weeks. And
Yes. And I noticed that when he does that, he always has a big smile on his face. Always has a big
Praise
smile
God.
on
Yeah.
his face.
Yeah.
Amen.
And
God is good.
It tends to be, at least when you're at the Oakwood University Church, you tend to be looking
Oh,
on that side
to the right.
where, where Sister Snell is
That's it.
seated. Yeah, so that's a good thing. All right, so why don't we start then, Sister Snell, with you?
okay.
When you think about taking a leap in marriage, what comes to your mind?
Wow. For wives taking a leap in marriage, I just think it's constantly being aware that there is always a need for growth. I think sometimes we get comfortable, complacent. We're in a good space. So I notice that sometimes when I feel or sense that my marriage is under attack, I'm more intentional to be listening to a marriage devotional, to look for a marriage plan on the Bible app, to turn on that marriage sermon, or to read a book. And then when things kind of are in a smooth sailing type of phase, then I'm not as intentional sometimes as I am when things are kind of in a rockier place. So I think it's just important to constantly be maintaining our marriage and looking for ways to grow and looking for ways to keep those tune-ups going so that we're not always in a reactionary mode, but looking like, how can I pour into my spouse? We just came back from a marriage retreat.
Yeah, we did.
And, this week I was, like, you know what? I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to learn how to speak his language, how to forgive, how to be the best wife I can be, and not just live on this high and say we're good, but say, let me constantly be growing. Let me be learning. Let me be asking. Let me be praying. So I think it's just, in my opinion, just constantly being intentional in that space.
You said two things that before I go to Sister Jones and then to Pastor Snell. You said two things that I think I've just got to explore. The first thing is, you said that you have a realization that at times your marriage is under attack. That's a very strong word. What do you mean by under attack?
Well, marriage is a spiritual union, and the enemy hates it. And he has darts that are intended to destroy our marriages. And he will stop at nothing. He'll use anything to try to create a distraction, to create division. And so I can sense,
Discord.
Discord.
You're not
misunderstandings.
You're not aligned.
Yes.
You're off center. Or just, you can see certain circumstances, that are just, some are just, all right, this is just a natural rhythm of life. But then you can just see certain things. They have a different pinch to it. And you realize, I just think you're able to realize that this has a spiritual force behind it. Its intent is a little bit different. And I just think there's some things you pick up along the way over time.
Yep, absolutely. So I just think we have to be in tune and know where the darts are coming from, because, of course, the enemy wants us to turn against each other. You're the enemy. You said this, you did this, and vice versa. Whereas we have to be looking and saying, this is the enemy. Let's turn our efforts and our hatred and our, energies toward combating the real enemy, which is Satan. So, those attacks, they rise up, and it's sometimes.
I like the way you quantify that. So when you talk about the attack, I think it's really anything that turns husband and wife against each other. Really, that kind of causes you to stop operating as a team and maybe starts causing you to operate as enemies and or free agents or just independent of one another. And so I just think that those things have intentionality behind them. And I just think you have to have an awareness to be able to sense, okay, man, the warfare has been heightened and we've got to make sure we use the right weapons to combat it, and that we don't turn on one another, but that we turn to each other.
The other thing that you said before I go to Sister Jones is you said that you guys just came back from a marriage retreat. And I'm thinking, I don't hear pastors and their wives talking about going to marriage retreats as participants instead of being presenters.
Well, we were presenters. Yeah, we were presenters.
Okay.
But you do get a chance to kind of soak in quite a bit. So after you're done, you kind of then turn teacher. You turn right into student. So you're trying to kind of marshal and kind of consume as much as you can. Because I think the one thing, I don't think we mind sharing with you, is just we're not exempt, you know what I'm saying, from any struggle, misunderstanding, just the normal, just challenges of life. Great, a strong prayer life doesn't make you exempt. A clergy title does not make you exempt. Matter of fact, I would probably suggest the opposite is true, that those things are kind of multiplied in some ways, just because to a certain extent, being in the public eye, just kind of, certain challenges of moving and different things that just kind of adds to some of those tensions. And so I just think one of the things that some great mentors, of ours early on let us know, like, no, there's just, you're blessed, you're favored, but you're not exempt from any of just the things that tear at the fabric of any marriage.
Mm-hmm. Sister Jones, what do you think of when you think
having
about
to follow that amazing answer? So for me, for wives taking leaps, this is going to sound maybe weird and maybe not. I think that it's even more important the longer you're married. So even with us being married, 22 years this year, 20 plus years. I think there is a tendency to kind of be very just in the rhythm and complacent with, it's like, oh, this is just what we're used to, or this is what we do, or having to fit in a rhythm that seems so normal that it's almost like, it's like not thinking. I don't know if anybody's ever been driving and you hit a section of the city that if you're on the street, you're supposed to be going blank. And you're not trying to go that way, but because you hit that street to go there so many times, you end up in this mode. And so, for wives, I think two things. I think it's intentional. The leap for I say, in my opinion, is to just be really intentional about knowing that who you married on your wedding day has grown and has changed.
Okay.
Not in a bad way. It's almost like having that pair of jeans that fits really great in the store, but they fit even better, the longer you wear them.
Wow, sure.
But that means because they have conformed to, right? Yeah. But I think it's also intentional for you to be like, hey, what is he like now? When we got married, I was 22, I think, on my wedding day, which I tell people all the time, you really got to know yourself. We were young, quote unquote, when we got married. And so, but when you're 22 years old, by the time you hit 44, that I'm a massively different person. Yeah. And so is he. So now it's still important for me to know who that guy is. What is going on in your head? The weight of the world has changed. We went from having no kids to 4, and bills have changed. And so what are you carrying? And being intentional about asking. I think a lot of times we sometimes are of a society, especially in a Christian church, it's very much about, men providing and men being the strong guy in the house, and what is he doing for his house, and what is he doing in order to make. And it's sometimes it's lost on women to be like, how can I help you in this space that you're in? What do I need to do in order to help you operate better? Or can I be that ear that you need to talk to, and be able to operate in that space so that you all not only are making sure that you are maintaining, but that you have grown together to be in the space where you are currently.
So in the husband's edition, Pastors Snell and Nugent talked about roles. Yeah. It was a really interesting part of our conversation, maybe the most interesting part. In terms of understanding that the roles don't have to fit certain stereotypes.
Correct.
Don't have to come in a conventional way.
Oh, yeah.
What's your take on the role of the wife and the role of the husband?
There's a lot of reflection.
I believe that there are different strengths that each partner has. And I think that when we are intentional about saying, even though this may be traditionally a woman's role, if you are strong in that role, then operating your strength. I just feel like it's all about strengths. My husband has more of like a strategic, organizational type process, and so sometimes I'll have these ideas, but I come to him and say, now how can we implement this? What's the best way for us to arrive at this point with our kids? Or sometimes even when we're just going from point A to point B, I'll be like here, here, and here. And he's like, I think a more direct way to do that would be, this. And I appreciate that we're both able to kind of allow each other to kind of jump in and provide. That wasn't always easy, you know.
Sure.
But it's, you know, as she said, the more we get to know each other and kind of reflect and say, okay, this is your bag, babe.
Yeah.
You're really good at this. He's really good at seeing the big picture. I'm good with more so like the details. And so we work together.
Yeah.
And that way the roles kind of balance each other out. So I think it's more so about strengths as opposed to roles.
You agree with that?
I do. I also think that there's room for them. I think they constantly change. So like, you know, there may be a section of the years that you're married where like what they're talking about is very specific to that decade or that 5 years that you were married. And then the next 5 years, it'll shift. So like I look at like, you know, where hashtag the boyfriend and I are now. There was a time where like going into the marriage, it was just like, you know, I was at home, I was doing most of the cooking and making sure that everything was, you know, whatever. When it shifted and he got home earlier than me, then he was doing the cooking. And a lot of people, you know, would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe your husband is cooking dinner. And be like, well, yes, because this is a partnership. And two things. Number one, it doesn't make sense for everybody to be hungry. You know?
Right. Everybody's starving.
Right. But at the same time, I think the beauty of it is to what is the need, you know, in this moment, in this time. You know, you have a person like you say, I'm the logistic person, and I can sit down and he'll say, hey, I think you can do this, and I'm like, we don't have time for that today. You know, at the same time, he's the guy where I'm just like, we don't have time, and he'll be like, okay, let's pause.
Take a breath.
Let's take a breath. So we can settle.
Danita is so my sister. I tell people all the time, if I was a woman, I'd be Danita. Like if I was a girl, I'd be Danita.
We are very much alike. I think that's why the worship management thing works so well. But it truly is. It's very much a thing where it matters with the time. And I think sometimes the bad thing that women can do is get locked into, well, this is who I married and this is what the roles were. Not realizing that leap can be, hey, it was like that 10 years ago. It's not like that now, and that's okay. Change is okay. It's okay for you all to shift.
So I do think for every couple, though, like there has to be, I guess, some evaluation and assessment, knowing what season you're in. So Gianna and I, we kind of had some conversations about the Proverbs 31 woman. Like she like does like really everything. And so like one of the things is like, so she's like up late cooking, but then she also considers the field and buys it and, you know, invests the profit, so on and so forth. And it's so funny because the husband, he's just chilling at the city gates with the fellas, right? But whereas I think kind of generally like a wife's role can be very different based upon the season that you're in. So Danita, I think she talked about kind of early child, you know, so I remember Gianna stayed home with our kids really up till they were in school age. So her life just looks my life has had a certain rhythm throughout. Hers has changed based upon the season, and she's been able to adapt. And so I think a part of it is us being able to recognize, okay, this is the season we're in now.
Right.
And these are the adjustments that we have to make in order to operate in a peak way as a family based upon where we are right now.
And you have to communicate at a certain level to do that, right?
Yeah. It doesn't just, and honestly, sometimes I think intellectually it takes you a while to even recognize, oh, we're in a different season now. Things have shifted. So actually, sometimes even the ability to recognize that and communicate it, the longer you've been married, I think the more adept you become at recognizing the season change. But I think early on, it takes a while to even realize, oh, we're in a different time or a different era of this relationship, and this is how we've got to work together as a team or as a unit in order to ensure the peak wellness of the marriage.
And I think, too, and I want to add, because I think a lot of women do this, a lot of wives do this, when the season shifts and you're not necessarily carrying the role that in your head you thought, there are times where I feel like wives feel guilty that they're not continuing on in that quote unquote role that they thought they were assigned at the beginning. I know for me, there were times where I'm just like, I'm supposed to be doing blank, and he's having to pick this up. He's having to pick up the slack. And there was a guilt that I had there because I'm just like, that's supposed to be my role. I'm supposed to be doing that. And that a lot of times you don't have to carry that at all. You don't have to carry that guilt. The shifting happens, it's a part of the growth. And sometimes the leap is to be okay with yourself, to being like, hey, I don't have the capacity to be in this role right now, but I can pick up wherever that other, aspect of it is either lacking or where we can meet in as far as that partnership is concerned. Sister
Snell, what do you think most men misunderstand about their wives?
I feel like one of the things they misunderstand is how much of a mental load that we carry. I don't know if you all have seen those reels where they will show a husband and wife lying in bed, and there will be a bubble that says a man's thoughts, and there will be a bubble that says a woman's thoughts. And the man has just one singular thought: am I going to get lucky tonight? Only thing on his mind. For a woman, there's like 18 different bubbles.
Right.
Did I remember to get the pet their food? Did I call my mom? Did I, remember to check my daughter's homework? Did I make my tooth cleaning appointment? Like, at any given moment, there are literally 18.9 thousand thoughts flying through our head about all of the systems and the logistics of our families, our children, and all of that. And so I think that a lot of times, the outward appearance for men just seeing their wives, they, may sense some physical exhaustion or, something like that. But I don't think that they quite understand the mental load, the mental exhaustion that we sometimes feel when we are just maneuvering through the day, because the thoughts of just trying to make sure everybody's good is just, it's a lot.
You agree with that?
Oh, 110%. I tell people all the time, like, I would never want to be a woman.
He tells me all the time.
No. And I don't say that in a demeaning way, but I'm just like, y'all think about way too many things. So, like, for instance, we had this retreat that we had to be a part of. There was this one event. It was an all-white event where people had to wear all white to the Saturday night thing. And it's funny because, like, when we get this awareness, like, she automatically is thinking about this, in my opinion, way too soon. Like, about what she's going to wear to this gala, like 3-4 weeks in advance.
My brain already was just like, what's going to happen?
You know when I tried to when I figured out what I was going to wear to that gala?
Probably just before you all left.
We traveled on a Thursday. That Thursday is when I decided what I was going to wear.
Okay,
and guess what? And if I didn't find all white, I wouldn't have felt no kind of way about it. I mean, I could have been in lime green and would have felt no way.
I thought you were at least going to say beige.
Right. Lime green. I felt no way about it.
A Skittle color.
Right. So I just think it's just really interesting because you talk about that one bubble. So, like, and she knows this about me. Like, my favorite part of the day is when I am thinking about nothing. Like when I can finally just turn it off. Right. And I just think, it's a unique gift and responsibility that God has given to wives. And that's why I'm kind of like, I'd rather stay in my lane where I can kind of compartmentalize and one thought complete this task before I move on to the next. But just like, mentally. So even our laptops are very differently. I have one window open at a time. Like I had to use her computer last night for something, and I had to close like 32 different windows. And I was just like, it was just emblematic of how our minds work.
I didn't even know that was possible
at a given time. No,
open.
On Gianna's computer, it was a lot of. I was like, what is this? So yeah, I do think it's a hard thing too, because I'm just like, just chill, just do this. You know what I'm saying? But
then stuff won't get done.
Yeah.
And that's why when you open the drawer, the soap the body wash. The things that you need are there.
Yep.
Because we're always thinking about making sure. Even when we travel, do you have what you need? Did we get the rental car? Did you know, I know you like the little wipes to wipe your hands. Like I'm like, do you have those in there? I mean, we're just making sure everybody's good.
Yeah.
And so, but that's exhausting. And there are times where you literally want to turn it off.
Yeah.
But it's like, how?
No, I totally agree. And what makes it funnier is the fact that that's when I was just like, oh no, this is where Gianna and I are related, because don't open my laptop. What's funny though, I think the misunderstanding also comes is that, like, all of those bubbles that women have, you know, the game Jenga? It's a Jenga tower.
Yeah.
And when one or two of those things either did not go well or they fell apart, you pull those two, you know, block things out of the Jenga and the whole thing is going to come down.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you ask, you know, your wife, hey, what are you thinking? It's not like the step-by-step process. It's the plugs that got pulled out throughout the day that kind of dilapidated the whole thing. And now, you know, for me, I will say a lot of times I'll be like, I just don't even know where to start to tell you what I'm thinking, because the tower has come down. And so now it's about figuring out, okay, so which thing do I address first? I'm willing to admit a lot of times that we are thinking about stuff that may not matter currently, but I think wives, a lot of times, because our children and our husbands, we oftentimes think of what could go wrong, and I want to be prepared for that thing. And whereas men are a lot like, I mean, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, and you're like,
and we'll
I
figure it out
can't, and
then.
you're like, I can't operate like that. And so to kind of, that's where, you know, my husband comes in, or he's just like, can we take a minute? Okay, I know you're worried that the car will blow up just in case, but that hasn't happened, you know. And I think that's the thing, is that it's not just about like, oh, this didn't go right. It's like, oh, this didn't go right, and this fits into my tower of things that I've been organizing, and now this whole thing has come down. And sometimes just listen to the wife and let her process that thing out. Because just like the game, you got to rebuild that tower. Let her process and rebuild the tower. And then I think a lot of men, one of the things I love about my husband is that he'll just listen. And then if there is a window, or I've left like an open question, he'll be like, okay, well, let me help you build the tower back. Or where can we start? Or can we put the blocks to the side because it's 2 a.m. and there's really nothing for us to do right now? You know, it takes little things like that to kind of ease her mind. You know, like I recognize that you're thinking this, and I recognize that this is where we are. Let's either figure this out together, let's put it to the side and go to sleep. Those are the little things you do, as opposed to trying to either bombard your way in to try to fix things, or at the very least try to be like, stop worrying about it, and then leave it alone. Those are, I think, the two worst things you can do.
Gotcha.
Or try to add to the tower.
And you're like,
instead of trying to take something
exactly.
away.
Right, exactly.
You know, that's one of the things I love, is he's like, all right, babe, you don't have to I'll pick up, you know, the boys, and then you go, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have
much
to carry
easier.
this.
Thank you.
I love it. I love the cooperation, the spirit of cooperation. All right, so we're out of time. Do you want to give some final thoughts on how to take a leap in marriage from a wife's standpoint?
So a wise woman once told me to talk to your husband about your boyfriend. And I think many times as wives, when there are different challenges or different things that are going on in marriage, a lot of times we want to just talk, and just try to get the changes to take place with our words and say, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you, you know? But I've learned through that wise woman to talk to my husband, which is God, about my boyfriend, which is Debleaire.
All right. I received that.
And let God do the changing. Let God do the work. Let God make those shifts that we need to see in our marriages.
That's powerful. And I would add, I think the converse is also true.
Very much.
Yes.
Husbands need to talk to
about the girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's a formula right there.
I love that.
Yeah. Until she broke that down, this is about to be a long conversation after this. I was like, after this podcast went over, I was like, okay.
We've got some new breed
Yeah, I know, right?
That's when the show was canceled.
Yeah. The final episode. That's when Pastor Snell's resignation went out.
Like, there that goes.
Yeah.
It's aligned with the same thing. I think too, it's just so important. What my final advice would be is that remember that he is also a whole, complete person that needs to be communicated with and needs to understand things. That he carries his own Jenga towers, that these may not all come down, that he has his own things that he has on his mind, and that a lot of times you cannot be consumed with what he may not be doing for you, because a lot of times that can be a direct result as to whatever is going on inside of his head as well. And so to come together and be like, you know what, after you are able to get what you need out, or even maybe before, to be able to allow him a space to do the same.
That's good.
Yep. Powerful stuff.
Love it.
Good. Well, I think every time Sister Snell and Sister Jones, you all come, it just adds something rich and deep, and not to mention it smells nice right here.
Yeah.
You've heard the ladies, you've heard the pastor. Now stop, pray, and breathe.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Executive producer is Debleaire Snell, and sound engineer is Kirk Nugent. Audio episodes of Breathe can be found on Apple, Spotify, or Google podcast platforms. For video episodes and extra content, check out the Breath of Life YouTube channel. Breath of Life is faith-based content, resources, and programs from a contemporary urban perspective for those looking for hope and guidance. We believe that every breath we take is a testimony that God is consistent, that He loves us, and has a plan for our lives.